Hey everybody, welcome to DBS Films Podcast. My name is Kellen. With me as always is my brother Brendan, and together we make movies with DBS Films. In today's episode, we're going into the second part of two episodes focused on brand. First episode you just might have listened to earlier in the week was why you need to have a brand. This one is how you can help grow and build your brand, because it's not the easiest thing. As we mentioned in the episode before, if you haven't heard it, it's really something where this is now a necessity. This is something that you need to be focusing on as someone who either wants to work in the industry as a creative or create their own business on the entrepreneurial side, making films. So always be sure to take a look at us at DBS Films Discord channel. That is the place to be. We make movies for our fans, with our fans, and you can see all the behind the scenes action and everything that makes our film studio come to life. So really, one of the big things that I kind of want to start off with this one is brand building. To me, is a lot of very tiny things that you consistently do over and over, and it slowly adds up. Now, I would say we had a huge explosion in what we were doing this year because we've really hopped it and focused it. And honestly, that's an even better place to start. I feel like this was the first year that we decided, how can we run with DBS Films as a brand? And I think it also goes back to one of the questions that was posed in the last episode. Well, when do you start developing the brand versus when do you need to make the product? Because one thing that, we both agree on is, if we didn't have Girl in Cabin 13, would we have the level of success that we had this year on the social media platform, specifically TikTok? Probably not. That being said, even if we didn't have this level of success, even if we had started promoting the brand at Gone, like the way we're doing it now, our brand would be much bigger. So the way I see it, it's a consistent task that you need to always be doing. Is that something you'll agree with?
Yeah, I think even if you're starting out and you understand that, making movies is difficult, that your movies are not going to be the best, that you're still learning, I still think you still have to have at least the mindset of building a brand. And I'm here to tell you right now, no matter how bad your movie is, how, hard the process was, and obviously your script's not going to be as good, the shooting's not going to be good. There's people who are going to like your movie. I've watched a lot of indie movies, especially on Tubi, and there's a lot of people who give an indie movie a chance. And that's all you need. You don't need someone to really like your movie. You just need them to watch it all the way through. And then, if they can watch your movie and they can go interact with you on social media, that's just a win. And that's how you kind of build your fan base. So I understand it's difficult to, market a movie after you've created it. It didn't turn out like you really wanted it to be. It can be difficult to market that thing, but I think you have to do it. You have to find the fans who are going to like your stuff, and you have to cultivate them. So that's just, the advice of how you build a film studio. I think we did get very lucky with Girl in Cabin 13, but we also got very lucky with TikTok, right? So you have to find the platform that's working the best for you. For us, it was TikTok. Before TikTok, there was Instagram. Before Instagram, there's Facebook. I built a whole bunch of companies just off the backs of Facebook. And what's going to happen eventually is that TikTok, pending it doesn't just get completely banned from the United States, it's going to start to lose, it's going to lose its edge, and something else is going to pop up, and we're going to have to pivot and use that. But as a filmmaker, probably if you read or you're listening to this and it's still late 2022, TikTok's a great way to do it because you can go live, so you can engage with people. You can show behind the scenes stuff, which is really, really popular. Our most popular videos are ones just showing our behind the scenes stuff. And I think people get a kick out of it because they think that Hollywood sets have all these crazy lights and all these people, and you got our guys on like hoverboards with a little light. Like, it's just kind of like duct tape filmmaking. But people like that stuff. They respect that stuff. They're seeing how we're solving problems on an indie level basis. They want to be involved in that. And that's pretty much how we kind of, grow our brand, is just finding where these people hang out and giving them content that they want, and then kind of cultivating them.
I think that's a great, way to start off and bring it up. And I think it leads to what I think one of the most important things with building and developing a brand is you really need it to be authentic. I think authenticity is a big one now that's striking up. think that's the reason why you see a lot of popularity with certain YouTubers, with certain platforms, and really with Kick or TikTok. It really does give you a lot wider of a reach, just in the sense of like how many people you could really see. I find like they push smaller accounts, whereas more of the traditional ones like Instagram that we've been using, we'll get some traction here or there, but I think it's just kind of putting that message out there, seeing where it gets received, and then amplifying it. But I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing is being truthful for where you're at. And I think this is something that we see 100%. I mean, our favorite thing is when we find other filmmakers out there that are producing content, regardless of their size. So, one thing we mentioned in the last episode as well is it's going to be harder the smaller you are with just the movies you have, and if you don't have any movies or whatsoever, but it's still always going to be better if you were doing something than if you weren't, because you never know when you're going to get lucky here or there. Things are going to go viral and things develop. But I think one of the big things you can do is be incredibly authentic. And I think that's where our TikToks kind of, help push, where basically people see who we are. It's just us making these movies. Like you said, it's hoverboard stuff. It's you running around with just basically the fisherman's rig, and, just horror movies, and being on set is something fun and interesting that I think resonates with people. But I think because we're not, pushing this very filtered narrative that you might see from, like a Lion's Head Gate or something like that, when it comes to just like how they're marketing any of that stuff, you get the feel for, oh, this is definitely more someone I can connect with. So would you say, embrace the fact that you're an indie filmmaker, embrace the fact you haven't made any movies, come out there, be like, hey, I haven't made a movie, follow my journey, let's see how it goes. I think that resonates. It might not resonate with like tens of thousands until you start getting bigger, until you get pushed by the algorithms, but it will resonate with one or two people. And a lot of times, I look back to those first 10 people that, started really pushing us and started really being fan and tuning in consistently. And that made the world of difference compared to where we were just getting anonymous negative reviews. So any little tiny thing that you can resonate with someone, I think you need to be truthful for it. And I think you'll find if it's just one or two, those people will be very helpful.
Yeah, so I mean, I still watch a lot of movies. And they kind of break down into different tranches. The first is I'm watching a whole bunch of movies on the idea that we're currently working on, just to get an idea of the feel and how we want to kind of make these movies. But, I kind of get burnt out on, there's like only so much found footage stuff you can watch before you got to cleanse your palate. And so if I'm going to watch a movie that I want to watch for the sake of enjoyment, I have a list of people that I follow. Like I either see them on TikTok or they're recommended to me, or I follow them or listen to them on a podcast. I think most of my movies that I watch now that aren't related to the movie that I'm actually working on are from podcasts. Like people will come on there and talk about their movie, or I'll see them on TikTok and I'll go watch their movie. So I'm not even part of the algorithm. I'm not going on Tubi and Netflix and being like, hey, what should I watch? I create a list of people who are willing to come out and talk about their experience about their movie. And then they're like, hey, this is the final product. And I'm not alone. There's people who just absolutely consume way more content than I do. And they love that kind of stuff. So I think if you're coming out there, you're going to be honest with them saying, hey guys, this is my dream is to make a movie. And this is what I want to do, and I'm going to document the journey. Boom, I'll watch it. I don't care like how bad it is, as long as you get it up there, I'll watch it. Second one would be like, I don't care how bad you are or the quality of your movie, if you're constantly releasing movies, right? My favorite guys are people who will do 1, 2, 3 movies in a year, because I could watch them get better. I could see what, kind of like their direction and how they want to make movies. I think it's really cool because with movies too, you don't really know if one's going to hit or not. So you can have one really good movie and one that just kind of missed. But I still like to see, the different thought processes of the directors that handle these movies. And, with most of them, they're very engaging. Find a lot of them on Facebook groups. But, I mean, if you don't think people are going to be interested in your movie, I just think that's a myth. I think no matter what, if you're making a movie, if you're uploading, if it goes on these platforms, people will follow you because it's a cool, interesting process. It's a work of art. And, people love it. They all want to be like movie people. Like that's just what they want to do. So I wouldn't make it, if you don't think you have high quality stuff, I wouldn't let that deter you at all.
So there's the first actionable tip. Be honest. Tell them where you're at in the filmmaking process. Tell us where you're at in the filmmaking process, and bam, you instantly got two people following you. So, I mean, that's really one of the key ones to get going. And I think the second thing, something that you mentioned, I think one thing that really allowed us to scale is understanding that it's going to be consistency. I mean, one of my favorite TikTok things, if you go take a look at our TikTok page, you will see that it's very straightforward because we kind of have a funnel system to it. We have TikTok at the very top. We also have Instagram and Facebook in there, YouTube as well to some degree, but really the amount of people that we're getting seen is mainly on the TikTok channel. But that's kind of like our top of funnel where we'll get people to see us. And a lot of the content that we post is basically behind the scenes, people doing one scene, another scene, and some of the best stuff that we have. I mean, you just wouldn't know why or any reason why it would do it. But we started deciding that, hey, we need to basically have an overall theme. And as we started to grow, we ended up seeing how much people wanted to be in these movies. People want to be part of this. And we understand why, because I mean, movies are something magical and special. And I think it's allowed us to really develop a consistency in what our method is, where we basically say, hey, would you ever want to be in a horror movie? Do you ever want to be in a horror movie? We make horror movies, and we cast an audition for them. So we have a very clear and transparent message, but I think you want it to be very consistent. And I think like an example of this would be, let's say I am like a rom-com, director or something like that. I would go ahead and just consistently be like, hey, this is my name. I make rom-coms. Here's kind of what I'm doing. Here's a behind the scene thing. You want to have a very clear message that's very repeatable, and you want to be very consistent with it. So if you take a look at our social media, it's usually the same things to some degree. And I'll be perfectly honest, in TikTok, I repost a ton of videos. I have a lot of videos that I know will do well, and I consistently repost them, like, not every single day, but spaces out, and not every other video. And one of the things is like one of our more popular videos, the one you mentioned of one of our DPs on the hoverboard. I posted that like 7 times, and it did pretty good, a couple 100K viewers. Then I posted it recently, and it did 20 million. And I think the advantage that we have is because of our layer of consistency and the message that we're having, you're going to get lucky more in the sense of who you meet. So, do you want to talk about how consistency, you never know when you're going to get those eyeballs? I mean, you never know when it's going to pop up. But one thing you can control, and this is what we always say, focus on what you can control, is how consistent you're doing it. And I know it's not fun, it can be a drag. You want to be a creative filmmaker, you find yourself doing here. But I think my experience that I see in like the indie filmmaking world is people are doing really like 1% of what they should be doing, and then they're not doing it consistently. So I think the biggest thing is you really have to understand that this is an important thing, and you have to be consistent about it. I think there's a ton of statistics out there that show like most YouTubers who become famous don't actually start scaling until they have 1,200 videos. And if you can't make a movie every single time, you're going to need to come up with some type of content. So would you say that consistency with anything is super critical to growing a brand, especially when you're first starting out?
Yeah, I think you have to, because not only are you going to reward your audience members with new content, you're going to get better too. I think that so many filmmakers are so scared about just releasing their content, releasing their movies, and they're so concerned about how the movie's going to do. If you could shift your mindset and say, hey, look, all right, 2023 is coming up. I want to make 3 movies that year, right? And that's the only goal that you focus on, is making 3 movies. Don't worry about the revenue. Don't worry about the metrics. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Just make 3 movies, and you're at the table and you're letting the cards go however they want to go. But if you do that, you'll save yourself so much stress, because I guarantee you so many filmmakers will sit here and worry about metrics and distribution and all this other stuff, when really the only thing that really matters is, can you make a movie and can you upload it? And if you can focus on that, you'll be in good shape. But like Kel said, Most filmmakers are like, all right, well, I'm going to make a movie, and then it gets stuck in post and film festival circuits, and then they're spending more time on distribution. They may go back and reshoot some of it because they're so worried about getting feedback, or they'll go to film festivals and won't do well. They want to add to it, and all of a sudden, your 3 movies that you're going to try and shoot in 1 year are 3 movies for 10 years, or you may not even get to making 3 movies. So be consistent, learn from your mistakes, don't make the same mistakes, and just try and get better. But that's it. Like, make your movies, and then after that, you're on to the next one. And I think that mindset is very healthy because it keeps the pipeline and your consistency going. When I release a movie, like I was like getting done with Shapeshifter, there's a million different ways I could have took that movie, but I was like, look, I got to make a decision. I made a decision because I have another movie that needs to be uploaded. And I think that's kind of diversifying not only yourself as a studio, but you're diversifying your mental feedback, your mental health, because you're not getting attached to these movies like most directors do who only make one movie every 3 years.
So I think 3 movies is a pretty big goal for everyone out there listening, especially if you had made your own movie. But I think the idea of setting the goal is important. And I think one thing that I see a lot that I love finding is if you're a first time indie filmmaker, there's a way that you can tell your story there. So be consistent in what you're doing. But I also think another one is take advantage of all of the social media channels out there now. Right now we have Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok as kind of the major ones, but we also have this YouTube and our podcast as well too. So I think because the filmmaking process is so hard in itself, especially if you haven't made a film yet, being part of this process and just doing things is going to actually naturally get you into a content creator mindset in the sense of developing the brand as well. So I think if you don't do I think too, an example here that would be really good is basically you have a filmmaker who just goes to make a movie versus you have a filmmaker who leading up to this movie does a podcast, does a YouTube, does Instagram, and does all of these channels. The first time anyone's ever going to hear your movie, if you didn't do any of this stuff, is when the movie releases. If you do all of these things and you start pushing it from there, you're going to have at least some people who will be aware of it during the movie making process. Also, with you giving back and forth and learning from the feedback that you get from the people you're engaging with, it's going to improve upon it as well too. So take advantage of every single channel that you have, but as you're creating things, you then give yourself more opportunity for that movie to succeed. So I think, just again, don't discount how much information and how interesting it is if you're a first-time filmmaker. For instance, you hear a first-time filmmaker, would you be interested? Like, just talk about how when we do find someone, how vested we immediately become when we hear their story. And this is just to let you know, if you don't even have a film, don't think like, oh, I got to make 3 or what's the goal here? Your goal can be as easy as making your first feature film. And then just from day one, you make that very clear to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I follow a lot of other people who just do shorts. All right. I think it's more lucrative to be in the feature movie business, especially now. I think with the festival circuit kind of falling apart and, the rise of like YouTube shorts have been kind of devalued. But hey, as long as you're creating stuff, I'm going to follow you. But I like what Kel just said, where you really need to kind of like build this foundation. You need to get your fans prepped. You got to find your fans prepped. So when your movie does release, you have people to watch it. And yes, all this stuff takes time. Yes, it can be overwhelming, but it's free. Like a lot of this stuff we're saying is just your time is the only cost to it. Having a Twitter, having a YouTube account, having a TikTok account, having an Instagram account, you don't need to pay for that stuff, but you do need to produce content on those levels. And I think you have to kind of cover all your bases because you never know where your followers are going to, come from. And then once you start to isolate them and figure out where they're coming from, then you can kind of scale up a little bit. But you need to have these fans ready to go. You need to have content ready to go before you launch this movie so that when you do launch the movie, you can tell all the people, hey, this movie that I've been documenting for the past 6 to 8 months is now ready to go. Would you, do me a favor and watch it? And they've probably been invested in the process with you, so they're going to watch it. But then you're also going to find people who are just randomly watching these movies. They're going to see it and they'll be like, all right, that was pretty cool. Let me like Google this guy or Google this studio, and they see, oh, now I have 8 months of, content that I could go back and watch. I could watch them talk about, the podcasts and see their thought process on a lot of this stuff. And that's always really cool. When I watch a movie and I Google the director, and I could go back and see, the process of them documenting it from, like location scouting to working with the actors. All that stuff is really cool, and it just keeps me more invested for when they make their next film.
Yeah, it really is the case again where we talk about it builds at the same time using that momentum. And I think the last thing I really want to hone in on, and I think it's so important that we've literally made it one of our, main mottos in the sense that we make movies for our fans with our fans, is being as interactive as you can. And I think this was something that really clicked this year because, as we mentioned, people see this and people want to be part of the process. And we open our studio up. We have an amazing Discord that's way more than just movies. We have events. We do a lot of these things. And again, I understand that takes a lot of time. Not everyone's going to be able to commit this much time. Not everyone has the essential vision of how big we can potentially scale DBS. And what it comes down to, though, the core idea of having people be part of your process. We see this all the time. Any type of feedback. We get feedback from our movies. We get feedback on our scripts. We get feedback, from our actors and our talent and everything there. And I think being as interactive as a studio as you possibly can is going to go ahead and serve you, very well. So much so, we make movies for our fans with our fans. It's really going to be a driving metric for us. And as I mentioned with the snowball, we're feeling it grow now. After we did a first, the first movie we cast for was the Shapeshifter, like online via TikTok. And we ended up having, one Howard ended up coming out and doing a great job in that one. And then we decided to double down or triple down or quadruple even for Into the Forest, which will now have 20 plus roles from people that we met in the channel, and all of the information coming from that. The fact that we are doing this is now allowing our channel to grow even more. I mean, we went from a couple hundred Discord members for a few months and it turned into 1,000 Discord members. This growth becomes exponential. And now when we're going into the Into the Forest 2.0 launch, we're going into the Forest of Death launch, we now have such a major, massive increase in the scale. I think when we did Murder House, we probably had about 5,000 Discord members. Now we have 12,000 Discord members, and we're looking at basically less than a year. So my point is, if you can get people engaged with your process. So, a good thing would this be maybe doing a live stream. So live streams are really, really big, in my opinion, because you can talk right to people. Do a live stream with someone, talk about, hey, what do you guys think of this idea? What do you think of that idea? Well, this is what I'm thinking. Like, that will get people so much more invested in the film because they then have a part of it. And I think you're going to see this more in the Hollywood system as they start seeing the success that we have with it, is just a lot more involvement. And when you have involvement with it, when you talk to people in a Discord community, they're not fans, they're part of DBS, and you want that mentality. You want them to be part of it. You want them to have ownership. You want them to have a buy-in. And if you're able to do that, you will have, fans for the rest of their life, because it really is something where you create a special bond with them when they do have a say, and they're not just watching your movies and being your fans. They're actually working with you.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. I think that that's just where you need to do. Every decision that you make needs to focus on that kind of mindset. And the sooner you start, the better. There's no reason not to be starting this stuff. And, we're giving advice to new filmmakers because that's where we were at some point. And, we're still looking ahead. I'd love to have the engagement that A24 and Blumhouse have with their fan base. But I think everything needs to happen at the same time. Like, you can't have really good engagement and high quality fans and everything if you don't put out high quality movies, or at least you don't put out a lot of content. So as you get better at filmmaking, you're going to find more and more fans, you're going to find more and more quality fans, and then you're going to get feedback and your movies are going to get better. So it kind of like starts to become like a cycle, but there's no reason why you shouldn't start right away. And I say, if looking back on it, if I had the ability to start doing this stuff at Gone, I think we would be in a much better place than we are now. And it would have been slow, it would have been painful, but it would have put us in a much better place to succeed. And I think we could have replicated a lot more success. So when we did actually hit Girl in Cabin 13, I think it would have been that much more explosive. We had all the fans and the engagement from the first 8 movies. But, you know, just a learning lesson, and we understand where we need to go now, and we're making the changes to, direct the course. And obviously the fans and the DBS community is our top priority and will always be our top priority.
And that in itself is really going to be something where, because of it, it creates such a solid brand that the community is holding up and telling about it too. So, I think finding ways that you can interact with people, finding ways that you can, promote yourself within it. And basically, like you said, it's just something you have to be doing at all times. What I will say though is, to kind of end it, it does get a lot easier. And the reason it gets easier is, one, the more you have, the easier it is to push the message. So, the more people that are following us and subscribing, the more it pushes it, the more the algorithm will then push it. But I think the second thing that you mentioned, the better you understand what you actually need. After we did TikTok, I had a bunch of footage from the haunting of the murder house. I still had a bunch of photos. Little did I know it's vertical videos now. So basically I had only a very few vertical videos. Then we go into Shapeshifter. Now I have a ton of vertical videos. I understand what people are looking for. There's literally scenes that happen now where I'm like, all right, let me get my phone out because I know this is going to be a good one. Same thing for Into the Forest. So I think the last thing I kind of want to, mention on is, it will get a lot easier, but it just makes you become so much more and more better. Even with the launch, just from having our super fans and everyone develop and be ready to push the movie, get reviews right away. We're already discussing ways to make it better for the Forest of Death. We're going to look at doing, just type of basically a system to make it more engaging, more interactive, more fun to support the launch of our movies. I think we're going to continue to develop it, so much so that a year from now, we're going to look back to what we considered like a good launch, and it's just going to be, barely what we actually end up with when it comes to how effective it is. So I think what you will be surprised with as a content creator is how much, if you put the effort in, you'll find things that work. At this point in time, we had no TikTok, we had no Discord, we had nothing last year. And if you told me that by this time we'd have nearing 12,000 people on Discord, over 300K people, we would have had super fan events where people come to our Halloween Horror Nights. I mean, as I'm recording this, we just had 4 more people join us on our Discord. So I guess our TikTok's doing well right now, but it grows and it develops in ways that you would have never expected at first. And I think you can say the same thing about our filmmaking. Every time, even from Gone and Invited, we thought we knew what we were doing to some degree. And yet it takes 10 more movies, 11 more movies to really put it in perspective. So much so that 10 movies from now, we're going to be like, wow, what were we even doing? And that's the benefit of consistency and growing your brand. Is it's not just so, you can promote your movies, it will make you better.
Yeah. I mean, I 100% completely agree with everything.
So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. If you do have any questions, or if you just want to see what we're talking about with the Discord channel, with the TikTok, with everything that we have going on, take a look at it, copy what we're doing. We'll be the first people to help you out with it. It's a model that we can say is having success, but more importantly, you just got to keep your head down. Continue to grind. You got to continue to do it, but the hard work does pay off. It does get easier. So until then, have a good one.